Hello, my name is Diamondstein-Cieplinska. I'm the founder of Stellina Events, a wedding and event design planning company based in New York City, and I plan weddings in New York and all over the world. I'm currently standing in the beautiful Prospect Park, where a lot of New York and Brooklyn brides get married at the picnic house and the beautiful boathouse. I created Stellina Events back when I was living in London because I just loved planning my own wedding. I planned it was a destination wedding. I was in London and planned a wedding in New York and in Italy. And throughout all of the stress and all of the drama, I still enjoyed the entire process. And now I'm able to impart that wisdom that I've learned on my brides and grooms and their families and just make sure that everybody's having fun. I have been planning weddings, corporate events, and special events for 10 years now. I would say my signature style is elegant, fun weddings that have a city meets country vibe, as well as a bit of European charm for my 7 years living in Brussels and London. But I do make sure that every wedding might have a bit of my charm, but also is specific to the brides and grooms that I work with. In the past 10 years, I've planned 25 weddings and special events in locations such as New York City, Washington, D.C., Iceland, Brussels, and Italy, as well as planned over 40 events for corporations such as Microsoft, SAP, the German software company, the Panama Tourist Board, and the East-West Institute. I'm currently planning a wedding for a lovely couple on Long Island in New York. And the bride is from Taiwan. She's been in New York for about 10 years now, and the groom is half Italian and half Chinese. So what they're looking for is the typical elegant, classic New York wedding with hints of Chinese culture throughout and Italian culture throughout. It's a great wedding, and I love being able to weave the culture through the invitations, her gown, through translations during the ceremony, and the food. All of the different elements bring in some of the culture with the overall look and feel of a beautiful, elegant, magical New York wedding. One of the questions that you asked on the list was, what is the most unique or unusual wedding you've ever planned? And my perspective is this. I think that every wedding is unique to that specific bride and groom, from what they like to what they dislike, where their favorite locations to travel to are. It all goes in to every element of the wedding, from the venue to the food to the beverages, the flowers, all of the decor and the invitations. It's in all of it, including the attire. So every wedding is unique. Though I would say one of the more unusual ones I've done, or unique ones I've done recently, was the bride was from Reykjavik, Iceland, and the groom's family was all from Johannesburg, South Africa. So I had to bring in elements of Icelandic culture and South African culture throughout the wedding, while also having a understated 1940s theme. So it was a matter of just blending all of that together throughout the wedding and creating a wedding unique to them. Some of the biggest challenges I would say a wedding planner and designer faces is making sure that your bride and groom and their families have their budget in order before you start planning. A lot of people are hesitant or scared for planning their budget and really knowing what that number is, but I firmly believe that once you know that number, you're able to understand where you can spend your money and just have fun from that point on. Another element is just dealing with all of the personalities, from the mother and father of the bride and groom to the sisters and the bridesmaids and the groomsmen, and of course the bride and groom themselves. It's just making sure that you keep all the personalities in line and make sure at the end of the day that the bride and groom are very happy, because that's my key goal. The most stressful element, I would say, of planning a wedding is when a bride and groom are not sure of their wedding vision. I normally, at my first couple of meetings, are brainstorm meetings with the bride and groom to understand what they love, what they don't love, their favorite places to go, to really understand the ambiance and look and feel that they want in their wedding. And I would say I've had a couple of brides and grooms that are quite indecisive, and over months their wedding vision consistently changes, and so it makes it very difficult to select a venue and a wedding date, as all the vendors change once their wedding vision changes. Just a few weeks ago, I planned a very stressful wedding at the Water's Edge in Long Island City, New York. It was going along swimmingly with the planning, and it was only on the day of the wedding that things started to fall apart. The caterer had provided the wrong premium cut of beef for the couple, and that was really important to them as they're huge steak lovers, as are all the guests, as well as their red velvet cake, which is their favorite, was made with a white base instead of a chocolate base, which we all know is incorrect. So besides that, their DJ played the wrong songs. They asked for 80s hits and they hated the music, and I had to step in and really just save the wedding. My focus was to get the bride and groom back to the core of their wedding values and knowing that they're there because of their love for each other and for the guests, and to just have fun and focus on having fun and sort out any problems with the caterer after the wedding, and that I would manage that as well. In addition, there was a slight mishap with one of the guests where one of the people in the wedding party slipped the inseam of his pants all the way down the leg, and this was probably at about 1 a.m. and I had to take him upstairs and basically hand sew the entire pant leg stitch by stitch, and it took about half an hour, but it was great and everybody was happy by the end of the wedding. Some of the more strange or unusual dramas that I would have to say happened during a wedding. During one wedding, the groom's parents do not speak to each other, don't like each other, and hadn't spoke to each other in years except to argue. And so the whole key behind that for me was to make sure that they stayed on opposite ends of the affair for the entire wedding, to be cordial during the ceremony and kind of discuss that with them a little bit in the beginning just to make sure that everything was okay, and then to seat them on opposite sides during the reception, and it worked out just fine. I would say another issue that I've seen arise during weddings is when the bride's family or the groom's family don't speak to them. So one time there was a time when the bride was getting married in a foreign country because her groom was from a foreign country, and so the American parents refused to speak to her for 6 months. It didn't go over too well, the foreign country wedding, but in the end we just ended up planning 2 weddings and got them married in America and in Europe as well. So that sorted that out. And finally, I would say one of the biggest dramas that really surrounded the wedding day, besides the parent issues, would be the bridal party and the wedding party. And so one time we experienced where on, I would say 2 days before the wedding, it was a destination wedding again, and one of the groomsmen, we called to find out what time his arrival time was because we had purchased his tuxedo for him as a wedding gift. And he told us he wasn't coming, and that he was in another country and he just didn't have time to come along. And so that was arduous enough, but we were able to make do and it was fine and the groom was okay. But then on the day of the wedding, kind of an argument broke out between the bridal party and one of the groomsmen and his wife. And the wife of that groomsman and the bride didn't get along and they decided to leave. So on the morning of this wedding, the groomsman and the groomsman's wife decided to leave, and that was one of the best friends and oldest friends of the groom. So that was a bit stressful, I would say. But what we did, or what I did, was to, in terms of responsibilities, really bring in other people in the wedding party. So there were a bunch of bridesmaids, and I brought in all of their guests. So there were two male guests that were able to help with the ceremony and the reception and any extra kind of wedding party duties that had been assigned to those groomsmen. And as far as the groom goes, I think it was just a matter of bringing him back to where he was, how happy and celebratory that day is, and just how much he loves his wife to be. So it ended up being okay. One of the biggest challenges, I would say, in planning a wedding for a bride and groom would be what I like to call the drama factor. We see it all the time. It has to do with the different personalities in planning the wedding, the bride's family, the groom's family, the wedding party, all of their friends, and what the bride and groom want. So my job is to keep the bride and groom focused and make sure that everybody's happy and kind of sort out their problems and work with them one-on-one to figure out solutions to make sure that everybody's having a fabulous time and we have a great day. Planning a wedding is what I believe that every wedding planner's goal should be, which is to create a wonderful, beautiful, fabulously fun event for the bride and groom that they love to share with their family and friends. And why do I think that you should pick me for whose wedding is it anyway? I would say I've been a bride too. I know where they are. I know how they feel, and I'm fun and creative, and I love planning weddings. I love the brides and grooms. It's fun and it's great.